Blog Talk Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sack Head Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sack Head Sean and Sack Head Clint. And we're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work there, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sack Head Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Spider gets bigger every single time you tell that story, I swear to God. Hey,
how does it get? They made a movie about it. Do you remember?
I did. What was
like
that, arachnophobia?
Japanese, no. It was it's right after Mothra. It's one of the Japanese ones.
No, you're thinking of something totally different. Hey, it's April 16, 2014. Welcome to the Sack Heads Radio Show. The temporary phone number is 347-205-9399. While we're still on the atrocity that is Blog Talk Radio, but that's going to change, and I'm looking forward to that. I said to Clint before we went on air tonight that I'm going to take the next 2 weeks to lambaste them on all the issues that we've had with them and all the disruptions in service, and it's almost like
I wonder if it's Russian.
No, I think it's NSA.
Well, I'm wondering if it could be a government operation. It's either a government operation or a communist operation, and I know sometimes that gets difficult to tell the difference recently between our government and. Why are you looking at me like that?
I'm not. I'm typing. I'm not looking at you at all.
No, you.
I can't even see you.
That's because you have a polar bear.
Well, yeah, doy.
In the way.
Doy, it's my attack polar bear.
It is your attack polar. Look, where's my? There he is. Hello, friend.
Hello, little friend. So
my
much to talk about this week, but how was your week?
What do you mean, how was my week? It was tax day yesterday.
Yeah, I know.
What do you mean, how was my week? Why would you even ask something like that?
You know tax day is my anniversary, right?
What?
My anniversary.
Is tax day?
It's tax day.
Did you do that on purpose?
Yes, because I'll never forget my anniversary. The running joke is it was the most taxing day of my life. I also, when we got engaged, I did it on a holiday, so I would remember as well.
What holiday was it, Christmas?
Easter. I forgot that it moves. I'm not going to lie. I'd had a couple beverages when I made that decision. I'll do it on a holiday.
Don't let her listen to this.
She knows. You wouldn't believe how many I have to pump into her just to stay.
Wait, are we talking?
Alcohol.
Okay, I didn't know. I don't want to assume.
So happy anniversary to my wife.
Happy anniversary to your wife, and happy tax day to everybody else.
Happy tax day to the tax man. You get to
screw the
all
tax
our money.
man. You can go screw yourself.
Flat tax sounds better every day, doesn't it?
And so I was thinking.
Uh-oh.
Why do you say uh-oh when I say I was thinking? You know what an effort this is for me.
Well, that just means I have to take the smoke alarm battery out.
Yeah, because I'm... So, how is it fair? Don't roll your eyes. I haven't even finished my sentence yet. I haven't even finished my question. How is it fair? How is it equal protection under the law that some people pay 33%, other people pay 25%, whatever it is? How is it fair that certain groups within the population pay more percentage-wise than other groups in the population? How is that equal protection under the law? How is that equal treatment under the law?
Well, if you look at the tax code all the way around, it's not equal anything.
Exactly. And so how has our tax code in its current state been allowed to stand? This is so I was thinking about this. I've been thinking about this for the last week, ever since our last show. I wanted to bring it up last show, but I didn't want to bring it up until after we were off the air. and I realized that tax day was coming up. The next show is the day after tax day, so we're good. We can talk about it then. But I've been thinking about this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
How is it that our code has never been challenged on those grounds? I haven't been able to find a case that has been challenged on that specific ground as being unconstitutional because it violates the equal protection.
Well, because to get to that, you have to go through the other, 3,000 pages of tax code and unfairness and all that stuff.
But still, just that the fact that there are different tax levels for different people and even different deductions. Like you can take some deductions if you earn under a certain income amount, but you can't take those same deductions if you earn over a certain amount. I mean, the entire thing it's really based on class. Mm-hmm. It seems to be a class system.
Well, that's
and that if you make more money, you are treated worse under the law based upon your socioeconomic status.
Right.
So how is it that the federal government and even state government?
Any government.
We're talking about the federal government. How is it the federal government can treat the citizens of this country differently based upon socioeconomic status? Is that not something the left consistently speaks out about?
Yes.
It absolutely is. So how is either a flat tax,
mm-hmm.
how is that not fair? If you make 25,000, I'm posing. I know you agree with this.
Okay, good.
I'm posing this as a
question of the listeners.
As a question of the listeners, how is it that, let's say 10%? I'm just pulling that number out of my posterior region. So if somebody makes $25,000 a year, and they're paying 10%, they're paying $2,500, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody makes $100,000, they're paying 10%.
Oh, 10%. Sorry.
Stick with me. We're doing math. they're paying $10,000. They're still paying more money,
mm-hmm.
right? But it's fair in that everybody is paying the same percentage. That would be equal treatment under the law, I would believe. Where am I off base on this?
You're not, but here's the difference. The politicians that put that stuff in base did it with special interest in mind. And it's not getting changed yet because there's too many lobby groups out there. That's what it comes down to.
I've heard every
defense from, every situation is different and independent, this and that and the other thing. Okay, great. I don't agree, but okay, that's your argument. I've heard literally somebody say when I was beating them in this argument before as to... Well,
physically?
No, I wish.
Okay.
But I've literally heard somebody say, well, what about all the accountants? They're going to go to work. And I said, no, they're not. Businesses still need accountants.
Yeah.
Corporate businesses will still need an accountant to file. I mean, there's still, if you're smart, because when you start having, even if it's a flat tax, you want to make sure that all your receipts, numbers, and everything up until that point equal what you're actually going to file on so you don't get hammered. That's not going away. So I've heard every ridiculous argument against going away from the current tax code. And listen, I know that the tax code was ripped apart in the late 80s. And then under the Clinton administration, there was a lot of these ridiculous...
Clinton's 90s, right?
I said it was ripped apart under the late 80s. And then when Clinton went in,
okay,
he started adding all these different percentages and special interest and all this other stuff. And here we are today.
The tax code is always...
You know what? If the tax code is much simpler and it was simplified, we wouldn't be having the conversation about the IRS and Lois Lerner right now.
Which conversation? We have so many conversations about the IRS.
The one about her going after conservative groups.
And we have some more on
and
that.
Apparently other people, which we'll talk about later on as well. But it's insane to me to think, it's like Obamacare. Everyone loves Obamacare. Well, it's what?
No, we don't love Obamacare.
Everyone on the left.
Okay.
It's what, 1,200 pages? You don't know what's in it, and as more comes out, the more
we have to pass it to know what's in it.
Right, exactly. It's not a kidney stone; it's law. But it's one of those things where they push for it, and they still love it. As much as more comes out, and the worse it is, they're still trying to tote it. There are those that are holding on to it.
Okay, so how has a case not been brought to federal court and it not been heard all the way up?
I don't know, Margot.
Great movie, Christmas Vacation, one of my favorite movies of all time.
I agree. It's absolutely.
You agree? It's my
up there.
favorite movie of all time. Great.
I agree. I saw your list, so I know it was on there. Doy. Man.
I spent a lot of time thinking about that, and it has frustrated me for the past week. It's actually frustrated me for several years.
It's frustrated me for several years, too. And you know, I was telling this story. We were talking about the IRS the other day, and I had a couple of years where I ended up owing the IRS. I set up my taxes at the beginning of the year based on what I thought I was going to make. I ended up making a considerable amount more. I had a good year, and I ended up owing. It happened 3 years in a row. And this is amazing to me. Do you know that if it happens 3 years in a row, you get a personalized phone call from the IRS telling you that you need to set up your taxes differently?
If you pay them?
I paid them. I was never late. I paid them right away. As soon as I got the notice, April 15th, boom, check was in the mail. No questions asked. I owe my taxes. I'm one of those people. I believe I should pay my taxes. I don't necessarily like
how they spend it.
I don't like how they get it, but I understand that my taxes have to be there, and it's my.
Do you believe that your taxes should be the percentage that they are?
No.
Okay.
Way
so you
too
believe
much
so
money.
you believe in taxation,
legitimate taxation that covers the bill.
So you believe in taxation,
mm-hmm.
and you believe in accountability for that taxation.
Yes.
But you believe the federal government taking more than X percentage is excessive.
Oh, yeah.
So you believe you have a right to most of your money.
Yes.
Where do you think you're living?
I have a lot of damn nerve. But so I got a phone call after 3 years from the IRS, and the woman said, hey, just so you know, the last 3 years you've owed us money. You need to make changes in your tax system and how you have your percentage. Take extra money out each month, whatever. And I said, well, why? And she's like,
because they want to earn the interest on that money.
Exactly. She didn't say that. She wouldn't admit that. I knew what that was.
Right.
But I said to her, have I ever been late? No. Did I ever not pay? No. Did I ever not file? No. Okay, so why are we having this conversation? If I owe you money at the end of the year, I owe you money. I'm going to pay it. Well, we don't like to chase people around for money. And I said, well, that's really all well and good, but that's not the point. The point is you're not chasing me. I'm paying on time. I'm not committing any sort of crime whatsoever. No late fee, no penalty, nothing. Why is the IRS, the federal government, calling me, by the way, on my day off at home and harassing me for monies that I've paid? Well, we would like to have the money ahead of time. We would rather issue you the check. And I said, I'd rather you didn't. I'd rather issue you the check. And then I spoke to her supervisor, who I honestly thought it the next year.
Was Lois Lerner?
Yeah. All of a sudden, I got transferred to Ohio, and the DOJ was investigating me. I was waiting for the audit because I put up a stink about that. I mean, absolutely. And what she didn't know is that year I'd already adjusted my tax forms with my employment to take more money out just because I was sick of writing the check, and absolutely made as much of a mess out of it as I could, because I'm like, all right, if you're going to harass me at home and you're going to be a condescending little wench about it, and she was. I mean, it wasn't like she was like, hey, just so you know, if she had said, here are some options so you don't have to write us a check every year.
Right.
Okay.
So did you go back and change your withholdings back again?
No,
to what they were?
I just let it go because I already thought I was getting audited anyhow.
Okay.
I just assumed I was getting the big red flag, like somebody was pulling that big red handle, and it was going to be me.
We got one.
Yeah, exactly. It was going to be me, who's the tough guy on the phone, but I don't know anything about taxes. I could barely do mine, and that was when it was simple. You know, I could do it all on one form.
1040 easy or whatever it was.
Exactly. You know, by the time we got into this argument, I already had a much more difficult tax setup, and I needed to hire somebody to do my taxes, which, by the way, you can write off, thank God. So I knew I'd be sitting in front of the IRS office with a box full of receipts. You know, okay, I was a jerk. You know, so I didn't. No, I just left it the way it was. I never heard from them again. But yeah, I was pissed. I'm like, first of all, I am literally paying you to call me and bitch me out. I'm literally, my taxes pay your salary, right? And I'm not one of those I pay your salary type guys. You know that. I don't work that way usually.
Right. Yeah, you usually don't pay a
condescending
salary.
to me that I was just like, I'm paying you to yell at me right now. Like, what is wrong with this world? Like,
her play would have been.
You could go to special places and pay a lot of money for this sort of treatment. I'm choosing not to. I don't want to go to those places. I just want the hell out of the IRS leaving me alone. And so then they hung up.
And then you got audited.
I did not. I have yet to get audited. I'm sure that'll change with all the reporting we've done on the IRS this year. But, we'll see.
No, because then they're targeting, and then they'd open up new.
They've already done it. One of the guys after a local newsman, I want to say it was in Kansas City, interviewed Obama and nailed him on a few things. And 3 weeks later, he got a phone call from the IRS saying he was being audited.
Did he do a story on that too?
Oh, yeah.
Did the audit go away?
No. They still audited him. Can you imagine that? That's
weird.
Some stones, I'll tell you. But I'm telling you, at some point, we're probably going to get audited from the IRS.
I would say it's. I would say it's definite.
I hope they still wear jack boots.
I've never heard of those. I've heard of Ariats. I've never heard of jack boots.
That's a nickname for them. So yeah, that was my brush.
I wonder
if
they still goose step.
I believe you're thinking of two-step.
Oh, okay.
And they do.
What?
That's how they make the entry into the office for the meeting. You said
do they still have those little mustaches? Those are cute.
Yeah, only on the guys though.
Okay.
The women would dress a little differently, but the same. Lots of tan in that office. It was bizarre. I know tans and in color and khakis are cheap, but I didn't think everyone would be wearing them. You know what I mean?
Right.
I felt out of place because I was in jeans, and I hate the IRS T-shirt. Also a bad idea to wear that day. They wanted me to turn it inside out.
Did you tell them no?
Well, I did until they said, well, we have a rule here that if it's something that's going to invoke a riot, you have to turn it inside out. And
you said, what are you talking about? This shirt is a riot.
It's a laugh riot. The last part of that was not true. Everything else about the brown shirts were.
And they do wear party insignias.
They do now.
The IRS got in trouble
some places in Texas was wearing it. Yeah,
they're wearing party insignias
while they're working.
Yeah,
and their voicemail. I don't know if they have armbands,
buttons.
It's a good way to express, I guess, your alignment with certain things. But they also had a voicemail out of that same office. I think it was the Houston office that essentially said, you're on hold, blah blah, this, that, and the other thing, and then got to the point of saying, oh, and you wouldn't. If you vote Democrat, you may not have these problems in the future. That was on a federal voicemail on the IRS to listeners.
There's nothing inappropriate with that.
No.
Have you
pitchy.
ever?
Yes.
Okay. I have to tell a story. and let me tell you this. Let me preface this by saying, kind of where I live, and it backs up to some rural area, and I have a dog, and let me just say that not all wood pussy smells the same. And here's where I'm going with that. You're laughing right now. So I've smelled wood pussy before, and it does not all smell the same. My dog got sprayed by wood pussy over the weekend. And hang on, for those of you that don't know,
this is one of those things we need to work on.
Well, hang on. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, I said Google. There's nothing gross about it, about wood pussy.
Still put safe search on just in case.
Well, it's a skunk. It's an old term from the 1800s for a skunk. It's
acceptable in the English language.
Yeah, it is an acceptable term for a skunk, and I mean that's what we're talking about here. I mean, wood pussy runs rampant in these parts.
Let's see, Rooster should be calling any minute now.
Am I saying anything that's untrue? We just did a whole expose. We're taking back the hate, right? We're taking back the hate. We already took back gay. I'm gay as hell right now.
You are the gayest guy in this room right now.
I'm very gay. I'm gay as hell. So why can't we take back? Why can't we take back wood? Why can't we take back wood pussy?
Why can't we take it back? Who took it in the beginning?
Exactly. That's my point.
Right.
Because
why do all the good words just have to go away?
Right. What? Pussy. It meant cat. Right. It's still in the dictionary. It's cat. Why do we have to make it something horrible? We're taking back the hate here at Sack Heads, folks.
Taking it back.
This week we're taking back pussy and wood pussy because skunks are part of the feline family.
I just had another bumper sticker idea.
What is it?
I'm not telling you. I'm not going to let other people get in on it. I'm making our list for our bumper stickers for our store.
Okay. Pretty much nailed it. So my dog got sprayed by this wood pussy. Have you ever tried to get the odor of wood pussy out?
I
like
absolutely
spray
have.
on your jeans or something like that?
I've had my dog get sprayed by wood pussy.
Okay. And tomato bath?
Yeah.
Tomato soup
Yep.
bath?
Yep.
How fun is that?
Oh.
My bathroom looked
It
like
was great until my dog got in the tub with me.
You mean with us?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I even had croutons.
It looked like a damn homicide scene.
I know, it's awful, isn't it?
I was like,
well, fortunately, and you get a big shepherd. I have 2 dogs, as everyone knows.
Good thing the federal government didn't come in right now.
Can you just imagine though, like
the government comes in, boom, what happened? Wood pussy. Sprayed everywhere.
I just picture like some poor flat-foot cop, right? Like going by the door, and all he hears is the ruckus inside, you fighting the dog, trying to get the dog in the bathtub.
Right.
And all he hears is like you screaming, "You get in there right now!" Blah blah. Just
I'm gonna kill you.
Right? Burst through the door thinking that somebody's getting attacked, and just sees the splatter everywhere, and then. He's all amped up, and he turns the corner, and you're in the bathtub with your chonies on, fighting your dog.
But you can't see it's a dog. All you see is a hairy, matted beast.
Right, they thought you got a hairy midget. Put that boy down.
Portuguese midget.
No, I had it much easier because you see my little dog, Lola, and she's only, at the time she was like 20 pounds. She's like 40 now, which she looks like sausage casing that's about to explode.
She does.
But so I was able to use like a oversized bucket and do it outside, which made my life a lot easier. And I actually found this powder that worked really well.
Cocaine?
No. That does work really well from what I understand. But it's an anti-enzyme, or it's an enzyme, and it actually eats the oil that the skunk that is in the wood pussy's
gland or whatever.
Gland.
Okay.
And so that worked amazingly. So I mean, I
wish I would have known about that ahead of time.
Yeah.
Because I spent a couple hours scrubbing wood pussy odor out of my dog's
It's
nose.
definitely a good plan B. I'm just saying.
Okay.
All right. This horse can't get beat anymore.
Speaking of horses, I saw the most disgusting thing on today. A horse's tooth get removed on video.
Yeah.
Like, the guy was all proud. Look at my horse's tooth.
He's not all proud. I was there with you.
He was all proud.
He was actually shaken and felt horrible.
It was absolutely disgusting. And he thought, wait, this is the funny part. Watch this. They're going to jam a screwdriver right in there. And then he starts laughing and takes a long sip of his beer.
That was 10 minutes ago. And he didn't laugh, for goodness sakes.
What are you talking about? He didn't laugh.
Oh,
he's going to put it on YouTube.
So we have a lot to talk about tonight that we will eventually get to. We have to do our ranting. I do want to talk a little bit more. May 1st, or the week of May 1st, we're going to make the jump from here to our new audio server. And it's going to be the best part is instead of having to chat here, talk there, whatever, you just be able to
chat. Now, the listeners can't see.
Most of our listeners
so
are smarter
chat
than you.
Here and then talk there. Because
they know what I mean.
Two different parts
You're
of the
confused
studio.
by it. They're not.
Two different parts of the studio.
No, you're not listening.
What?
They're not confused. You are. And I already gave you a graph and a pie chart and how it's going to work.
No. That was a gram and a pie that you gave me.
So you'll be able to get everything through shrmedia.com. Every show, all the time that we're going to have in the lineup. We are working on a couple other broadcasters right now, and a couple other writers, so we're really excited about that. I actually tested it's not public yet, but I tested the new audio server today with much success. I was extremely pleased. We have a couple little bugs to work out, but it's going to go great. The website's Rooster's really coming together and finalizing everything on that. The chat, as we can see tonight, which is we're chatting on the shrmedia.com chat roll, is working outstanding. So we're really excited about it.
And we really need a webcam because we're going to have to show the intern that's going to carry around the segment numbers and parade around almost like in boxing.
I know, that poor guy.
And he's
going to be busy.
So we hired out a former Cabana boy, I guess. He's retired or he got laid off.
Injury. I think it was a tragic margarita glass injury.
It was an injury, was it?
No, I think he was attacked by an old lady in a martini.
No, because that one couldn't carry the sign up directly over his head.
Oh, right, because the arm was missing.
Right. So now I think we have the large cards, and we have 1 through 4, but we're going to have special segments also. We really need to get that.
We have to get to at least through 9.
And conservative outcry, no, not hot pants.
It gets hot in the studio.
It's a licorice thong.
No, it's
what it is. No, it is. Remember, because I said red, you said no black. And
I thought we were just going with the really, really thin linen shorts.
No.
No? Okay, well. But, hey, you know what? I celebrate and support his lifestyle. Whatever he wants to wear, we're a comfortable studio, and I am not one to whatever you dress in is what you dress in. Get your tips, pal.
I can't wait till we come back home from vacation and do a real show.
I know. We've kind of decided this up until May 1st. We're just having fun. We're going to get back. We're still going to do our topics like we usually do, but we're going to have more fun than usual the next few weeks.
Basically, we've ceased to give a crap for the next 2 weeks.
I blame BTR. I blame BTR.
I blame Obama.
347-205-9399 is the phone number if you want to comment tonight.
When we come back and talk about IRS's the emails that show that Lois Lerner, our sweet girl, was talking with DOJ.
Things just got serious.
Is radio.
It's not real.
Sack Head.
Radio. Reactionary Speak radio program.
Introduce a little anarchy. Upset the established order, and everything becomes chaos. I'm an agent of chaos. Oh, and you know the thing about chaos? It's beer.
Friday night, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, here on BTR.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sack Head Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberty, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or follow my blog at conservativeoutcry.net. Now, back to the Sackheads.
347-205-9399. If you're listening off BTR, you can go to shrmedia.com and click on the chat roll on the right if you want to get on the chat room. So lots happened this week in the world of the IRS. We found out...
That's right. Everybody paid taxes.
Everyone paid taxes.
Well, not everyone. Some people paid taxes.
We found out that Elijah Cummings' office, the 7th representative out of Maryland, he's also...
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because
I wrote an article about it.
You did?
Yeah.
I read
media.com. I talked about what a huge game changer it was because he was one of the biggest people in that committee talking against it. And he would stonewall and cause problems. And come to find out, there's emails from his office to Lois Lerner directly pointing out True the Vote out of Texas and having them investigated. And within 3 or 4 days of the email, I think the investigation was open. And then there's emails between Lois Lerner and her assistant asking for updates on that investigation. So is that political targeting? Sounds like it. He's a Democrat, right?
Right. And what information did he get?
Right.
From the taxpayer, and why did he want that information?
But I think that's a huge game changer because now,
he was asked during the hearings, right?
He was asked initially if he'd ever had contact and said no.
Or he said, she said, well, somebody's staff has contacted, blah blah blah.
But he was asked specifically and denied ever contacting the IRS over True the Vote. So one of the things I said is, first of all, he should be suspended from the committee immediately because you can't have somebody who's
absolutely he should recuse himself.
Right. Absolutely.
Or be recused.
And then you really start to look into what his office, what information he got, and if you can prove a motive. Now, if he got an email, even though it's not his district, so he should have forwarded it to the representative of that district, but if he got an email saying, hey, these guys are up to some dirty stuff, and if they truly were, that's different.
Mm-hmm.
But still, that should have been handled by the district representative in Texas, not by the 7th in Maryland, not for the office of Elijah Cummings. I can't even sign up. If you go to just about any House.gov website or Senate.gov website and you try to do a contact me, if you're not in that person's district, that email, there's an autoresponder that automatically kicks you over to the correct district. So it's not even like somebody just accidentally submitted it to his website and he ran with it trying to be a nice guy. To me, there's some dirty politics going on there. And I think he should be removed and he should also be investigated.
But the House and the House Ethics Committee, I believe, are the ones who would actually get all of the...
Yeah, we saw how they hammered Charlie Rangel with his tax evasion, so that should be good.
Well, they found him...
yeah.
Like in the John with his secretary or something. I don't know. Didn't they hold him in
They held him responsible for tax evasion.
Right.
Hold on one second. Is that breaking news over there?
Is that breaking news?
What is going on?
What is that? Somebody just get jaked?
We just got jaked again. Hey, if Sacco's not here to blame somebody. So,
what are you talking about? That was Sacco.
So it'll go to ethics. Well, what'd Charlie Rangel get? Like a $75,000 fine and a slap on the hand.
An elected a $75 fine?
No, I think it was $75,000.
Oh.
But it was something ridiculous, and he was evading his taxes. And he's an elected official of the United States who votes on taxes. Like, that's one of those things that absolutely he should have been hammered completely on, and he wasn't. And again, I always hate to go back to Nixon, but I go back to Nixon, and he was a man who was forced to resign out of office or face impeachment, and he did the right thing. He resigned and saved the country a bunch of turmoil. And then you have all these representatives, House of Representatives, that rail anybody on the right.
Yep.
That even
on the right. Actually, I thought you were going to go the whole secretary thing.
No, that's just certain presidents.
Name one.
Clinton.
Name another Kennedy. Never mind. I said it.
I can keep going. But so that's where this is going to go. It's going to go over to the Ethics Committee. Oh, I'm nervous. And I haven't even looked at the panel on the ethics committee to see what the makeup of it is or who's
It's like
on
Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson.
Elvis
Sharpton. Aldous Snow.
So that's where that's going to go. And then, so I thought that was pretty big news. I threw a quick article out on it because I figured it was something that had to be commented on. And then we find out.
How is that not impeachable?
I would like to see how it's not impeachable. I'd like for somebody to prove to me how it's not. I believe it is. I absolutely believe it is. If you can prove that it was ill intent and
well, what else? What's the other intent? How is it? There is no legitimate purpose for his office to have that information
and deny it. That's the problem. Is he denied it? If he did not deny it,
if he said, "Yeah, I got the information because whatever," then okay. But if you deny it, obviously, to me, that shows the consciousness.
Right. If right up front he was like, "Yeah, you know what? I got something for True the Vote, and I forwarded it over to the IRS, even though I should have sent it over to the." Okay. All right. At least you're honest about it. You didn't do it the right way, but we can talk about, when you should.
Okay, it's a procedural.
Right. You just screwed up in the future. When you deny it outright, and it's not like he didn't know it happened. You know that happened. It came out of your office to Lois Lerner and the IRS.
Mm-hmm.
You know this happened. And you knew it, but it says to me that's why he's been causing such an issue and trying to get this dismissed and thrown out, is because he knew it was eventually going to come back into his own lap.
Good.
And it did, and mainstream media, not even crickets.
Not even crickets, right?
Right. Not even crickets.
Like you didn't even hear.
What?
Yeah, that was the sound right there.
Exactly.
That was a sound clip.
You at least could have heard this.
Yeah, but that's not. Play the sound. Play the sound.
But instead, you heard
again.
this.
Yeah, that's the sound clip.
And that's the problem right now.
That's the sound clip.
It's a huge problem, in my opinion. So I thought that was going to be like a holy moly, like this is going to blow it out of the water. This has to be one of the biggest things coming out now. Outside of the IRS controversy itself, the cover-up is often worse than the crime. And so now you get into the cover-up, and I'm like, all right, Elijah Cummings, this is a big deal. And then turn around, and what happened this week, Clint? Clint?
My earphones just cut out.
What happened this week?
So some emails were obtained by Judicial Watch.
Yes. And
townhall.com did a report about the emails between Lois Lerner and the Justice Department. So apparently there in May of 2013, there was an email where Lois Lerner responded the Justice Department inquired about whether tax-exempt groups could be prosecuted criminally for perceived lying about their political activity. Basically, if one of these groups says, "Hey, we're not primarily for political purposes or whatnot," and then they end up having some form of political activity or whatnot, the DOJ wanted to be able to prosecute these groups. And what the email supposedly says is, quote, "I got a call today from Richard Pilger, Director Elections Crimes Branch at DOJ." And she was writing this email to Stephen Miller, who was the acting director of the IRS at the time.
Did you say Bueller?
No, Stephen Miller.
Oh, okay.
Simmer down. It says, quote, he wanted to know who at IRS, the DOJ folks, could talk to about Senator Whitehouse idea at the hearing that DOJ could piece together false statement cases about applicants who, quote, lied on their 1024s, saying they weren't planning on doing political activity and then turning around and making large visible political expenditures. So planning on doing political activity, how do you prove that at the time they submitted that paperwork they were not planning on doing political activity and then they changed their mind? I don't know how you prove that. So the DOJ is now you have Lois Lerner connected to the Justice Department talking not only about where she was specifically targeting conservative groups, but now she's in contact with DOJ about criminally prosecuting these groups for being politically active when supposedly they're not supposed to be, or in their mind
they weren't under the criteria of being politically active.
In their mind, their political activity reaches a certain threshold, or whatever it is, and obviously this shows proof that again you have coordination with various federal agencies to specifically target conservative groups, and I don't know how you read this really any other way. I mean, how do you not read this that you have pressure, like Darrell Issa said, from prominent Democrats who are leading the targeting of Americans for political beliefs, and that's I'm kind of summarizing what Darrell Issa said. It seems clear to me.
Yes.
And I think it seems clear to most Americans if they're paying attention to this sort of thing, and it should scare them. Look, I don't care if they're targeting conservative groups or liberal groups, any group really. The IRS is supposed to be a nonpartisan organization, as is DOJ.
Well, that's been proven wrong time and again, though. DOJ under Holder has been very specific.
Of course it is. But here you have the Justice Department, and we already know how Eric Holder feels about the Tea Party, and we know what this is about, but here you have now the Justice Department trying to go after what Tea Party groups, but yet, you have criminal aliens, drug smugglers coming across the border and so forth. And that
voter intimidation.
Yeah, and that ties into the Bureau of Land Management case out of Nevada also, where you have the federal government who won't take any action among these drug smugglers, yet they'll take action and try and impound cattle.
Right.
That's ridiculous to me. And we can talk about that case a little bit later because I actually see both sides of that rancher argument. But the federal government is acting completely inappropriate and selective enforcement, particularly against the citizens and against conservative citizens.
And that goes against equal protection. That goes against doing the right thing and what their job is supposed to be. If you're going to prosecute one, you prosecute them all.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to prosecute, if you're not going to prosecute certain things like illegal immigration, and you're not going to deport people who are supposed to be deported under the law, then why are you going to waste your resources going after maybe 4 or 5 political groups who may have written one thing on their 504C application and done another thing? It's absolute hypocrisy when you talk about what you just talked about.
See, I don't think it's hypocrisy. I think it's oppression. I think it's the federal.
At best, it's hypocrisy.
I think it's the federal government exerting its power and perceived authority, although they get their authority from the people, but exerting their power over the people in order to oppress a particular group that they don't like for their political
prior to a major election.
And that to me, and it's continued, right? That to me is worse than the government being hypocritical.
No, I absolutely agree. I have a clip from Jay Carney who was asked about
communications are challenging here.
So that should pretty much just leave everything. That's done. That's it. Communications are challenging. We don't understand. We have pea brains. That's pretty much what he tells us.
That's true. That's true. We don't understand how the country got. Well, that's the problem. See, we do understand.
Right, and the problem is we understand better than they do, because they're looking at it from the point of complete power.
They understand. They understand exactly where they want to be. Look, Obama has a very specific domestic agenda. He knew coming into office domestically what he wanted to accomplish. He had a blueprint in place. He's unveiled that blueprint, and he's gone down that path, and he's done a pretty decent job about, like he said, fundamentally transforming the United States of America. He really has. And I mean, if it's a domestic policy issue, if it's immigration, if it's gay marriage, if it's taxation,
but even on that,
healthcare, whatever it is,
even on that, he changed his view from his election, and when he was
he didn't change his view. He changed his talking points. His view didn't change.
No, it did. He was Listen, he did not support
his talking point.
No, he did not support gay marriage going into his first election. He was on record as saying it goes against his Christian values. He made that abundantly clear.
The problem is...
And then, as we said in our show, all of a sudden his view on the situation evolved just before an election.
I don't think his view evolved. I think his view was always what it was, and he had to have that first view publicly because he wanted to get elected and he wanted to come across the bottom.
All right, either way, though...
No, so his social agenda I don't think changed. I think his talking points changed because he didn't do anything to show that he had these Christian values and that his stance on gay marriage was what he said it was. He didn't have that stance. He didn't do anything that showed that. He made those talking points because he had to make himself appear to be moderate. Cat's out of the bag now. Second term is coming up. Cat's out of the bag. People were tired of Bush and all the talking points that Obama had. And he needed to kind of galvanize that far left base in that election, so he changed his talking points to what I believe he really is. He's a far left radical. He's the most far left president we've had, the most progressive, the most radical president we've had. There is no way he had that conservative traditional view of marriage initially. So, like I said, I think that he knew exactly what he believes in domestically and socially, but internationally he flounders.
Mm-hmm.
Internationally, the man has no idea what he's doing. And I think he's learning on the job. And look, being president of the United States is a tough job. And I'm sure there is a very steep learning curve. There is a very steep learning curve, I would believe, for people that even spent a lot of time in politics that when you become president, you become privy to different things and you have to make certain decisions. And I believe that Obama was even less prepared for that than other people.
Well, he was barely a junior senator when he got elected.
Right, than other people who have taken that job. But so understanding that steep learning curve, he has still done a poor job, I believe, in his foreign policy, in this administration's foreign policy. So knowing that he has this agenda in place, or believing that he has this social agenda in place, domestic agenda in place, it's not surprising to me that agencies of the executive, the IRS, DOJ, and so forth, were cooperating and collaborating to suppress a group that they really despise, the Tea Party group.
Right.
Which they hate. I mean, they talk about, they coined the term extremists.
Oh yeah, they've added every metaphor that we use for terrorism in this country. Yeah. They've applied to the Tea Party and even the Christian right.
They have, and there's even been documentation in federal training venues and you read the reports of and military training venues where they talk about Christians or even conservatives as being domestic right-wing extremist groups. And so that's what they're telling their federal employees or their agents or their military personnel or whoever it is that's sworn to protect us. I mean, that theology is really rampant throughout the administration. So it's really not surprising that the tools of the executive in the form of the IRS and the DOJ would be used to target those Tea Party groups in order to suppress that threat to their socialist utopia.
And I ask, this is when I start to ask, and before everyone who listens to us jumps down my throat, is it something that the president is directing or leading the charge of, and or is it something that it's the Democrat Party in general? So is it the president who's dictating these policies per se, or does he have the handlers that are pushing him in that direction?
I can't say the president.
Is it incompetence?
Look, I cannot accuse the president directly because I don't have evidence.
Well, when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal.
Right. I think it's this president's policies, absolutely.
Right. It's just a matter of where they've derived from.
Right. Now, the Democrats want power. There's no doubt. Just like the Republicans want power, the parties are power-hungry entities. I get that. I believe that. Democrat, Republican, each party wants to stay in power. And I think that now, unfortunately, a lot of times all of the time, the politics is about the party being in power as opposed to
the individual,
the true will of the people, or the good of the nation. Now, I believe one party is better for the nation than the other party, but I still don't believe it's about the party.
No, we talk about it all the time.
Right.
We hate the two-party system.
It's about the people.
We hate the fact that people get put up to be elected that are figureheads versus people of principle, people of morals and values.
And I don't think Obama is necessarily a figurehead. I think Obama legitimately wants to transform America. I believe Obama is a Marxist. And I believe
even though he'll never admit it.
Oh, of course not. But if you look at his policies and even the terminologies that he's used and people in his administration have used.
Well, and you look at who he surrounded himself with as he was growing up.
Yeah, it's clear that they've read Mao. I mean, even the things the president has said, the things some of the people in his administration, it's clear they have read Mao and they subscribe to that philosophy.
We all know that Carney's a big fan of communism and communist Russia because he has pictures on his wall in his kitchen that reflect
propaganda pictures.
Propaganda. So, I mean, that's kind of telling. And he's just the press secretary.
It could just be art. So I think it's Obama and his ideas.
So I ask you this. If it's just art, and I always
said that being facetious.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I said that
because I bring it up to if you ever walked in somebody's house and you saw something you couldn't believe you were seeing, and they try to sell it off as art, but then after a while, I've walked in
the dead hooker in the corner.
It's art.
Yeah.
I've covered her in shellac.
Mary. I was with her last Tuesday.
I've covered her in shellac. It's just art now.
Right.
No, I walked years ago. I was probably 19. I walked into a friend's house, and a kid I thought I knew pretty well. And as I walked in, and it was like his first apartment all by himself, there's a giant Nazi flag, other Nazi memorabilia, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just a collector." World War II collector? Where's all the other stuff? That's all you get your hands on. It was the most expensive. But then I started to...
Sometimes people are collectors of...
But then as I started talking to him, because now all of a sudden you have that heightened sense. I'd known him since he was 13, 14.
Right.
But you start picking up on key things.
And he was the one that told all the racist jokes and none of the other ones.
Right. But they were all very specific.
Why do all of your pillowcases have holes cut in them? That's weird. I don't understand. What is this?
Is that your nose doing that when you sleep? It's just bizarre. No. But eventually I got to the point that I had to separate myself from him.
Well, I would hope so.
Because it didn't take long, but I was just like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Are those Doc Martens with white shoelaces? I don't understand.
I didn't know you liked woodpeckers.
Right.
But you start getting into that where you're like, wow, you think you know a guy. Same thing with Jay Carney, except with Jay Carney, it's like, we thought we knew him, but the pictures only kind of help bolster that thought.
Right. Right. You walk in, okay, figures.
Right. Figures head. He goes from Baghdad Bob to some sort of Russian name I haven't come up with yet.
Comrade Carney.
I got to retitle a couple sound clips now to Comrade Carney.
Hey, you walk into my house and there's shotguns on the wall. Ammunition everywhere.
Like I said, I've seen World War II displays in people's houses where they've had just an abundance. I understand the art collection aspect of it, but usually if somebody collects...
You don't hang a big Nazi garrison flag. You don't cover your wall.
They're trying to say it's art.
Right. You put that away somewhere. Hey, this is a period relic. It's a real battle flag from whatever.
No, I was young and ignorant at the time, and it took a while for it to come together. I'm just like, man, this guy must be really religious. Look at all these wooden crosses.
Look, my family... Right. My family... they're iron crosses? Okay, whatever.
That's weird. Why are these ones made of wood?
My family fought in World War II.
Right.
And I have family that fought in the European theater and family that fought in the Pacific theater.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I have some
paraphernalia
of history from each, right?
Yeah, as do I.
But I don't have a Nazi battle flag hanging on the wall. As a matter of fact, I don't have anything out on display. It's a very personal family mementos, right?
Right.
But yeah, I don't have a red armband or anything.
I don't have a custom fitted uniform.
Right. No, what do I
I'm
wear
a role
for?
player. I just haven't got to it in a few years.
I wear this just because it's, heirloom.
I do the World War II role playing. I just haven't gone in a long time.
Right. I LARP. That's a new World War II LARPing. You haven't heard about that? Live action role play? No big deal. I play Hitler.
I'm trying to start it. I'm the only one so far, but I'm trying to get some other people on board. But it takes one with courage to make a difference.
I need an Asian guy, Hirohito. Anyone?
No, but the same thing is, my grandfather has a pistol from World War II that has a Nazi insignia. It was a naval captain's pistol. We've done the research, and that's locked away in a safe in glass because it's probably worth a ton of money. I've never actually priced it. But he also has a samurai sword off a dead Japanese naval officer that he held for safekeeping, and they said, go home with it, So that was cool. But again, in a display case up on a wall.
See, I don't have any weapons at all from World War II battlefields.
Either. You can check my house. Oh, crap. I just gave consent. All of a sudden, the feds are going to show up at the door and just hit play. Be like, ah, damn it, you got me. Come on in. Oh,
would I hide
man.
priceless antiques in the stove?
Would I do that? Would I light the stove? My good pal Muggsy was inside.
You might grab it. You might.
Still one of my favorite Bugs Bunny cartoons of all time.
You know who one of my favorite Looney Tunes characters is?
Ooh.
Pepe Le Pew, the wood pussy.
347-205-9399. When we come back, I don't even know what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about something fun just for you fine folks here on the Sack Head Radio Show. Only you.
Hey, if you care about what's going on in the world, you cannot afford to miss my show. Hi, this is Andrea Kaye, your host of The Andrea Kaye Show. It's not always about the money. Okay, it is always about the money, but it's also about politics, pop culture, and you. The only thing street about this show is the smarts. There's a reason they call me Dynamite in a Dress, and you'll find out why when you listen Tuesday mornings at 10 on Financial News and Talk.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sack Head Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
Hey folks, it's Sean from Sack Head Radio. As a native Bostonian, my heart broke on April 15, 2013, watching those horrendous attacks at the Boston Marathon. Now there's a way that you can help. Go to onefundboston.org, ONEFUNDBOSTON.org, where you can donate to help the victims and families from this awful attack. Onefundboston.org, all the proceeds will go directly to the victim's family. Thank you very much from Sack Head Radio.
Now back to Clint and Sean on Sack Head Radio, radiating elegancy and quality.
347-205-9399 is the phone number here on the Sack Heads Radio Show. You know, I just heard my ad for One Fund Boston. Did you hear about the jackass they arrested in Wakefield, Boston, Massachusetts?
I did.
Wakefield. So apparently, yesterday on the anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombings, some jackass decided that he'd take it upon himself and to go to the exact location that the bombs were placed and have a backpack that had a rice cooker inside, not a pressure cooker, but a rice cooker filled with confetti, dropped it, and then began yelling a whole bunch of insane stuff to the point that citizens flagged the police down and contacted him, and then he became combative with the police. But really? He got arrested. He was charged with the hoax device, possession of a hoax device, and disorderly conduct. And amazingly, a judge sent him to a state hospital for mental evaluation, so I'm sure he'll get out on a mental release. But can you just imagine at this point? You know, then I heard that MSNBC ran and I want to issue a challenge in a second, but MSNBC yesterday ran a piece that was sympathetic to the Boston Marathon bombings, in which, you know, it was like kind of telling their story and, you know, whether or not they really had conviction and all this other stuff, or not conviction, whether or not they, you know, even there was questioning if it was even them on some level.
Oh, jeez.
And first and foremost, I watched.
You know what? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was. Maybe they just led the police on a big, long pursuit and shootout
for no reason whatsoever, and
for no reason.
They gunned down poor Officer Collier.
Right.
Nat Geo, National Geographic, did a great segment called Inside the Boston Marathon Bombings. If you have a chance, and we don't normally push stuff like that, but if you have a chance, you should watch it. It really gives insight. But the other thing it did is it gave eyewitness interviews from the bombing. It gave eyewitness interviews from the day of the pursuit, right up to the guy. They interviewed the guy who found Joe Karzanayev in his boat.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a chance, you know, it touches me personally because of what it was. But it touches a lot of people. If you have a chance, you should watch that. It's actually really well done. And how they put that whole case together and they caught those bastards. So to the producer of MSNBC, and you know we don't condone violence on the show, so I'm not going to go down that road.
Right.
I would like to issue a challenge of a boxing match. Not violent. We both enter into a contract just like any other sporting event. It's not a street fight or anything like that. But if he would like to make if he wants to do it, I'll find out his name. All proceeds will go to the One Fund Boston charity.
So how many rounds?
I'll do 12. Hopefully I'll be able to smoke during it. We'll have to do it outside somewhere. All I can think of, do you ever see the movie Old School? When he's on the rings and he's got the cigarette hanging out of his mouth?
Who was the boxer in that Bugs Bunny fight? That's what I pictured you as. It's kind of like a bald, wrinkly head in the back.
No, but I'm serious. I think that'd be a good way to raise money for charity. If that producer wants to, because listen, if you want to run that,
if you don't know who that producer is,
I'm going to find
somebody.
I'll find out.
Like Rocky Balboa.
I'll find out. I'll still, hey, to raise money, I'll take the beating. To raise money for that charity, I would take that beating.
Okay. So even if the guy ends up beating your ass.
MMA, oh, yeah. No, I'm not. Listen, I'm not saying I'm going to win.
Okay.
But I just want to bring awareness to such poor taste by those in mainstream media. You had 364 other days you could have ran that.
Right.
You could have ran it the night before, and it wouldn't have
a couple days before.
Or a couple days afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, you could have ran it.
Same day as the marathon instead of the same day as the memorial.
Right. You could have ran it on the day of the pursuit, even.
Yeah.
And I think that, okay, I'm still not thrilled about it, but I'm not one to stifle speech. As you know, on this show, I would never do that.
Right.
Then, okay. But it comes down to taste and the lack of taste. And listen, mainstream MSLSD is just in the toilet. I mean, their numbers are horrible. They have absolutely nobody that watches that, with the exception of other media to see what kind of crap they put on. And I understand that it's a rating, and they're all about ratings boost. I mean, look at with the Alec Baldwin thing and all that stuff. It's all about getting ratings because they have nothing. I mean, they are absolutely like the homeless people of mainstream media.
Socko.
But so that's the challenge I'm issuing. Find that producer's name. I'll tweet it out to him directly. Oh, Sacco brought me Oreos.
Sacco brought me McDonald's.
And I issue a boxing match, 12 rounds. Sir Marcus at Queensberry rules, and we can go from there. It's much more old school. Much more old school.
I don't know what that even is.
First of all, you have to box with your hands way up in front of you and your wrist kind of curled back, and you have to do a lot of like circular motions with your hands. It's a big deal. But that's my theory on that. But I'm not kidding about that. But I just can't imagine in this day. Can you imagine on the anniversary of 9/11? And I don't get me wrong. I know it's two considerably different events. I understand that the amount of the loss of life and destruction at 9/11 was considerably more than what occurred.
But it's still a terrorist attack against the United States.
Can you imagine if they ran a pro video for Timothy McVeigh on the day of, on the first anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing? I mean, just pro Nidal Hassan on the first anniversary of Foot Hood. All these issues.
Pro Muammar Abu blah 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 cop killer.
Yeah.
Oh wait, they do that.
Right. But but just the amount of insensitivity, the just complete in your face. The only word I could think of is jackassery. That's put out to sell some advertising. It, to me, is deplorable and horrible, and it's everything that's wrong with that.
See, I didn't think I wasn't going to talk about it tonight because I think they do it for that shock media.
Right.
I think they do it to get their name out there.
Right, and don't, if you listen to this, don't Google it and give them don't do anything like that. I'm telling you what's in it. I'm not going to lie. But just think the next time if you have that liberal friend that says, oh, I was watching Maddow or something like that, bring that up to them. Oh, yeah, you're watching the same people who, on the first anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombings, played a video that's sympathetic to the bombers? Are you kidding me?
Well, yeah, they're innocent before proven guilty. There's a mindset out there, Sean.
No,
and they are innocent until proven guilty.
Absolutely.
But there's a mindset out there that America is always in the wrong.
I know. And
that
horrible.
mindset exists on the left.
And
just like there is that mindset to some on the right where the government has absolutely no place to do anything and everything the government does is wrong. And that's not the case either. But there is that mindset on the left that America is so evil and so wrong that we need to have sympathy for these people. And I think MSNBC plays to them.
Well, I just think, of the family of the victims, little Martin Richard, Officer Collier. I just think of those families.
They don't care about the families or those people.
I know, and that's the problem. We do this. Are you okay, Sacco? Sacco is dying on the. Sacco, go outside if you're going to choke. We do this because we care. That's part of the reason we do this. Is because we care. And we poke fun at a lot of things. We poke fun at ourselves as well, but we also do it not to sell. Listen, someday I'll show you the numbers from the show. We're not going to be retiring on this anytime soon. We plan on it down the line, but we understand the fact that our honesty sometimes would hurt our pocketbook, and that's fine.
But we don't care.
We do this for the reason of defending the republic, getting information out there that's otherwise squashed, giving real analysis on things that occurred, trying to be as forthcoming as possible. And listen, if you've listened to our shows, we hit both sides just as equally.
No, we don't hit both sides equally. We hit the left much harder or much more often, but we do hit the right also when it needs to be done.
Right. But we don't pull punches with either.
No.
So, that's one of those things that I really was just disgusted and mortified when I heard about it. And, of course, I had to go watch it because I had to know what I was talking about. Part of this job, you get forced to do stuff like that. MSNBC are leeches. Absolute leeches on the bottom of pond scum, and I'll leave it at that.
Pond scum?
Yeah, underneath the pond scum.
But a leech is a surviving, living organism.
They're barely surviving and living, but they're still surviving and living.
But they still thrive. But leeches thrive. So what about?
They're like the high desert tortoise. No, wait, that's thriving too.
That's thriving too. So the government shouldn't do anything about that.
No.
High Desert Tortoise. Wasn't that a Clint Eastwood Western? That was High Plains Drifter. Never mind. It's a great movie.
It was one of my favorites.
It was a great movie.
Absolutely was one of my favorites.
High Desert Tortoise was something else.
So that's my spiel on that. And of course, yesterday was the 1-year anniversary that the marathon's coming up this coming Monday. So, like we say on 9/11, thoughts and prayers to the families that were affected by that tragedy. And it's still fresh in the mind. And, listen, I've talked to a lot of people this week back home. And this is why I love where I'm from, is because some of it's bravado, because that's just who we are, but some of it's also legitimate when you say, hey, how's the city, how's it responding? They're like, yeah, it happened. We moved on. And not moved on like we've forgotten, but moved on like it's not changing who we are and what we do, and we're not afraid of those pricks, which is exactly what somebody said to me. That's a direct quote. That whole just unafraid, not going to be affected, not going to let somebody else dictate how they exist, is one of the things that makes that city great. And that really kind of summarizes the city for me. And it's bounced, it's taken that such stride, it's embraced it, and it's moved on. It's embraced the victims and taken care of the victims. The Red Sox went out and won the World Series. Everything worked out right that year afterwards. Because that's how Boston is, and I just, my hats are off to
I would have liked
people there.
I would have liked to have seen MLB have done something to where like everybody wore
a B. And so, there are some teams that did that.
Some teams, but
absolutely,
like last night in Major League Baseball, all of the teams, every player, every umpire, every coach wore the number 42.
Right. Jackie Robinson Day.
Yes.
Which is a great thing to do. Don't get me wrong.
Thing to do. No, absolutely.
Yes.
Jackie Robinson was a hero of Major League Baseball, and I completely get it. But I would have liked for everybody to wear
the B.
Boston Strong armband or something on that anniversary. Just like on 9/11, I think everybody in Major League Baseball should wear. And on December 7th.
Yeah.
Well, they don't play baseball in December.
No, but
you know what I mean. NFL.
But on July 4th, they all wear the Stars and Stripes version of their uniforms and stuff like that.
Or the military version.
So there's a lot out there. So, but I would have liked to seen that as well, and on on all of them, not just MLB, but all the major sports leagues that played last night. And there was a bunch of teams last year that did a great job of doing that and supporting that, and a lot of other cities. Chicago dedicated pages of the Chicago Sun, I believe it was, to the victims of Boston. They did a really great analogy on how the sports teams from Boston and the city of Boston represent each other. That was really well. Just things like that. And I said this last year, but it makes me so glad through all of our political differences that we have and all of our issues that we have with the left, the right, whatever, when something like that happens, to see how this country comes together and supports it, just like everyone did in 9/11, just like everyone did for Oklahoma City, as we talked about, Fort Hood. And they did that for Boston. I think, the people of Boston are not ones to really shed a tear for something like that. We kind of play the tough guy all the time because that's just who we are. But I can tell you, as a Bostonian with a lot of friends back home, it was felt, and it's still felt today. And it's still felt this year going into the marathon.
But not everybody in America does that, because you have the Rolling Stone magazine that made him look like a
Jim Morrison,
freaking rock star.
Yeah, they essentially put up a picture where he looks like Jim Morrison.
Right.
Well, but those are individuals. Those are specific individuals. And listen, if you read the numbers on the Rolling Stone after that, they tanked. They got hurt. That hurt them bad. The people responded. And I thought that was huge. And it's little things like that transcends politics and issues and all that stuff. Their numbers tanked for like the next 3 or 4 months after that. So I think that's huge. I think that really shows the fabric of this nation, that sometimes the best of people come out in the worst times, and that's exactly what happened. When the New York Yankees are running a video tribute at their stadium, that really tells you how
that's true.
If anyone knows the Red Sox and Yankees rivalry, it gets ugly on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But you know
what I think the fabric of our nation is?
What's that?
Hemp.
That's only the fabric of certain politicians.
Oh, yeah.
I think cotton is actually the closer one. Are we allowed to say cotton anymore? Is that still an acceptable word?
Yeah. Remember, we're taking the hate back.
Oh, we're taking the hate back. That's right. Okay, good. So that's my spiel on the Boston anniversary for the Boston Marathon bombings.
You know, I know we spent some time with the IRS, but I wanted to get back. Did you read Donald Rumsfeld's letter to the IRS?
I had not.
So yesterday, Donald Rumsfeld writes a letter, and I'd like to read it. It's not long, but I think it's great. If Donald Rumsfeld can write a letter like this, and he's the old Secretary of Defense under George Bush, but he sent it directly to the IRS in Washington, D.C., and he says, "Dear Sir or Madam, I have sent in our federal income tax and our gift tax returns for 2013. As in prior years, it is important for you to know that I have absolutely no idea whether our tax returns and our tax payments are accurate. I say that despite the fact that I am a college graduate and I try hard to make sure our tax returns are accurate. The tax code is so complex and the forms are so complicated that I know that I cannot have any confidence that I know what is being requested, and therefore I cannot and do not know, and I suspect a great many Americans cannot know, whether or not their tax returns are accurate. As in past years, I have spent more money than I wanted to spend to hire an accounting firm to prepare our tax returns, and I believe they are well qualified. This note is to alert you folks that I know that I do not know whether or not my tax returns are accurate, which is sad commentary on governance in our nation's capital. If you have questions, let me know, and I will ask our accountants to be in touch with you and try to provide any additional information that you think you need. I do hope that at some point in my lifetime, I am now in my 80s, so there are not many years left, the U.S. government will simplify the U.S. tax code so that those citizens who sincerely want to pay what they should are able to do it right and know that they have done it right. I should add that my wife of 59 years, also a college graduate, has signed our joint return, but she also knows that she does not have any idea whether or not our tax payments are accurate. Sincerely, Donald Rumsfeld."
That's awesome. That is awesome.
I think that is great. I think the first two lines, I've sent in our federal income tax and our gift tax returns for 2013. As in prior years, it's important for you to know that I have absolutely no idea whether our tax returns or tax payments are accurate.
Hey, listen, I work pretty high up in the government. I have a couple. I'm pretty smart. You know, I can use a slide rule,
right?
And I couldn't tell you for the life of me. So here's what I'm going to do. If I'm wrong, let me know.
Right.
If I'm right, send me the difference. We're going to work on the honest system. I wonder if he did that on purpose.
I don't know.
So if he overpaid,
is he going to get audited?
No. They won't audit him. He's too high profile. Because he'll come out and say it. He's not afraid. Especially...
Yeah, but this letter, he's admitting that he has no idea, right? So why wouldn't they audit him to ensure that he is paying the proper amount?
Because he would absolutely make a big deal out of it, and they know it. They'll never touch him. They should, based on his statements.
That's what I'm saying.
Hey, Donald, you know why we're here, right? Yep, come on in. No, I literally have 4 piles of receipts over there. And some of them, am I allowed to write off adult diapers? Because I did. It's a medical necessity at this point. So, oh man, but it goes to show how insane. Now, former defense secretary, doesn't know if his taxes are right.
Right, it has no idea.
And it's not that he's an idiot.
No. And apparently, he says in his Twitter, it's his annual letter to the IRS.
That's even better.
So he writes this letter every year.
He has a disclaimer with his tax return. That's
he's actually
awesome.
Smart, because he's saying if he gets audited or they try and get him for fraud, he's saying, no. Look, I sent the letter right here saying that I have no idea. I wasn't trying to hide it. I told them I had no idea, so I'm not trying to commit fraud.
I encourage every person who filed an extension this year to copy and paste that letter and sign your name into it. Change the biographical stuff to match yours. Don't start claiming to be Donald Rumsfeld. That's all bad.
Don't plagiarize the letter. Stop telling people to plagiarize.
It's not
Do
plagiarize.
not
it's not
plagiarize the letter.
No.
You can write a similar letter.
No, plagiarize it.
Do not plagiarize a letter.
It's not illegal. It's not an official form.
It's an official letter from Donald Rumsfeld.
He's a citizen like you and me.
So if a citizen wrote a book, I can plagiarize it.
That's different. He's selling it for money. It's
How do you know he's not
copyrighted.
making
It's
money on
trademarked.
this?
Is it copyrighted and trademarked?
I don't know. Do you?
Is there a C or a T on it?
There is a C?
No,
not
in
for
one of the
T.
words. Down
and
the
I
bottom.
see a couple T's in here.
Oh, man. I still say copy it. Wouldn't that be great? And next year in 2016, we're going to have that letter again because I'm sending one in with mine. Wouldn't it be great if everybody sent in theirs with that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know, oh, here comes the environmentalist. You're killing all those trees for a joke. What is wrong with you?
It's not a joke. It's CYA.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
Have you ever written on your time card all time? Have you ever written on your time card all times or approximate? I have. Look, watches are different.
I use guesstimate. All times are a pretty good strong maybe. And I'm almost sure about that. No, it is a sad state of affairs, but that's where we are. We talked about the taxes for a long time ago, and a lot of people fail that way. Mm-hmm. One of the things, too, that I always warn people of when you go to these tax companies, and I'm not an accountant.
Like the IRS? Is that a tax company?
No, company, not government-run entity.
Oh, like GM?
Make sure you read the small print when you sign it, because I know people that have signed it, like they go to, and I'm not going to say the name of the company because it's one individual that screwed up, but they go to a company and they get their taxes done, and they are, well, I'm just going to get my money in 5 days, blah, 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 and they send it in, and whoever their tax person was at this company hosed it. And when I say hosed it, I mean like it was a 6-alarm fire, and they were doing just massive amounts of water on it. And he got audited, and he went back to the company, and they're like, well, you signed right here that this is right and accurate. He ended up winning long term, but it took a while. So have an idea that there's actually a couple great websites out there that you could put in without putting your personal information, how much you made, how much you paid in taxes, and kind of give you an estimate before you go where you should be ballpark. And I recommend you use stuff like that because it's definitely, and the IRS, I don't care. A lot of people say, oh, they're the kinder, gentler IRS. They don't screw around. They will absolutely hurt you if you physically, possibly, but definitely financially if you are not on the ball with them.
Is that a death penalty case? Like, is not paying your taxes appropriately a federal death penalty? Because I know you can be a terrorist and you can't waterboard them and, do any of those other things, but I'm pretty sure if you don't pay up to the IRS that it is perhaps a death penalty case. Yes? No?
I think it's going to be close to death penalty. It might be 25 to life.
It may be flogging or caning. I don't know. Like sugar caning, where it sounds nice, right? But it's actually like very, very. It hurts a lot.
Sugar caning.
Right, my family's from Hawaii. We've had this talk, right? Have you ever been sugar caned before?
No.
I have as a kid. It's horrible. It's a horrible, horrible experience. It sounds awesome, right? Like, my mom, I'm going to sugar cane you. I was like, yes. We have a caller?
Yes.
Who is he?
Hey, boys, look what I got here. Hey, where are the white women at? Ain't nobody got time for that.
It's Shaft, baby Bubba. Yeah.
Who is the man?
Ken, my man.
Ken, how are you, buddy?
Man. Shaft. Yeah, dang right.
You can just sing the whole song. I'm going to sit here and tap my toe. We're going to live music tonight.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening,
sir. How are you?
So conservative.
Wonderful, wonderful. It is me, depending on which language or ebonics you're studying at your local school.
I actually take advanced ebonics.
Also, me be calling
because
into your
very
station,
similar
right?
to Bostonian.
I'm sorry. What'd you say, Ken?
It's actually very close. Me
very close to Boston.
Calling into your station.
You see how I get treated?
Boston, Sonic. I'm seeing it.
You see how I get treated on this show? It's awful. It's awful.
It really is. It really is. Hey, you know, but it's not often that people get a chance to speak like they're going into the parlor.
Well, you have to go in the parlor. That's where you can sit down and put your feet up on the piazza.
Nothing wrong with being in Boston, unless you happen to be the Vice President of the United States. Wonderful speech. I'm quite certain you were very proud of the Vice President's speech that you all survived. And by golly, with all those Obamacare bills that are coming into Medicare and Medicaid that we're about to reject, I just want you to know that we sincerely support the fact that you went through a terrorist act.
Here's the funny part. Go ahead. Because I'm going to pull up a statistic while you talk about that for a second that I got that you're going to absolutely love. So go ahead and talk about the president's speech, vice president's speech for 1 second.
No, I just thought it was really amazing that, first and foremost, for me, it just goes to the understanding of why Obama is still president. Simply because everyone looks at the number 2 and understands there's not much left. Okay? Hey, if anything happens to this guy, you could get worse.
At all costs. Protect him at all costs. Politically, physically, it doesn't matter. Don't let him. I wonder, I almost wonder if Republicans aren't even like, no, let's not impeach him because, seriously, look what's coming down the road behind him. You know what I mean? It's the lesser of the evils right now.
Dumb is just incognito. You just worse than that one. I tell you.
Well, it's funny, Ken. You talked about the healthcare and Medicaid, and I'm still looking. But how many people do you think, on average, after Obamacare? Now, keep in mind, Massachusetts did have its own healthcare system in place, as we all know. Romney Care was there. But how many people?
And all the southern states thank Romney for that.
Yes.
Thank God, because all the businesses left.
How many people do you think that they signed up in total for subsidized QHB or Obamacare natural, not the Massachusetts one, but Obamacare, the one that was supposed to bridge the gap, even in Massachusetts? What do you think the amount of enrollment was? Just throw a number out there.
If we look at what Rand says, we should be dancing with the president as well. 845,000 individuals after $3 trillion of spending. Gosh darn, we should have just sent all that money out individually and would have stirred the economy completely.
The total so far in Massachusetts, as of April 8th, I believe, from December 1st, 2013 to April 8th, 2014, 769 people in Massachusetts signed up for Obamacare.
Whoa! Let's go to the board again, fellas. They should have brought Jerry Lewis out.
Guess how many left Medicare, the state Medicare, medical security as they call it, but the state Medicare, and overall that in that time period, that 4 months, 1 week.
Out of Massachusetts, I would probably say about 20,000 people left.
3,063 people. So they'd rather stay on the state Medicare system than go to Obamacare because that's how bad the numbers were. And the transitional coverage, i.e. the temporary Medicaid, this is the ones we've talked about there, the flat files that you don't have to prove anything up front. You just sign up, and they'll say, oh, well, we'll eventually get around to screening you and how much money you'll pay, but right now you're just good to go under Medicaid. How many people? The number is 159,111 people who at this point have free coverage. Free coverage. They don't have to prove anything. And now, say half of them. Let's just say half of them, roughly 80,000 people, go to the ER for anything. Even a doctor for a cold. Anything at all. You're talking minimum $200-300 as soon as they walk through the door, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they're just giving out. And what they don't tell people is if they prove to be fraudulent, they're going to have to pay it all back. And they didn't tell anybody that. Massachusetts has a total on the state, on the Commonwealth Care, or Mass Health as it is, 1.6 million people. Commonwealth Care, which is the step down on the Mass, it's kind of like the bronze plan, 101,000 people. So, the state side of it, people like, right, whether you agree or disagree with it. People in Massachusetts generally like the state side of it. There are those people that still hold on to their Cadillac plans, as they like to call it, to make you sound rich and famous. A lot of people still hold on to it because it's better than all of them. But 769 individuals signed up for Obamacare in the state of Massachusetts. Is that not insane?
That is insane. But I really appreciate the effort that the great state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, applied in terms of enrolling people, finding as many people they could in the cemetery, sign the paperwork, and get enrolled at the last minute to 769. They did a far better job of spending their money to enroll those 769 people than the state of Oregon, which just said after the first day, screw it. Hey, who cares?
Yeah, you know what? We're going to give up because there's a lot of numbers and stuff that we don't want to deal with. Hey, Ken, we're up against the break. You going to hang on the line and stay on the other side with us?
I will hang on
All
with
right,
you.
Sack Head 3 here on the Sack Heads Radio Show.
Sack Heads Radio.
Sack Heads. Sack Heads.
Radio.
Sack Heads. Sack Heads.
Radio.
Reactionary Speak radio program.
Introduce a little anarchy. Upset the established order, and everything becomes chaos. I'm an agent of chaos. Oh, and you know the thing about chaos? It's beer.
Friday night, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, here on BTR.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sack Heads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberty, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state. America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens. This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or follow my blog at conservativeoutcry.net. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Welcome back to the only group that's like a televangelist group. Just kidding. We're the Sack Heads Radio Show, 347-205.
No, but seriously, if you want the Sack Heads to give you a blessing, just make your check payable to SHR.
SHR Media
This
LLC.
is the right
And
El Softy.
We will
Please put your Please put your towels, your panties up against the radio. I swear the Lord will bless you as you have just blessed me.
Now press the PayPal button on the right of the page and donate. Or the good Lord himself will come and get it from you.
You can keep the towel, but put the panties in the envelope and mail it. Thank you.
He's got no time for that. He's too busy snitching on mob people.
Oh my gosh. No, what's even worse? What's even worse is that the Attorney General, the person who is the highest lawman in the country, who is supposed to have the highest moral character of anyone, steps onto the stage that Al Sharpton gives him, the former snitch. Don't come to Baltimore, brother. And he professes that's racism that's keeping the black man down from the presidency and from the attorney generalship. And then Obama comes in the next day and says that everything that my attorney general said is absolutely right. It is the man trying to keep us down, even though he is literally the man. So it is the white side of Obama that's oppressing the black side of the attorney general. And we need to speak against that.
Hey, don't go there with me, buddy. You don't want to go there with me. I love that because all right. If Holder, and we know Holder's a complete company man, there's no doubt about it.
Well, hang on a second. You heard what Al Sharpton said about Easter, right?
No.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Wait.
Well, Easter is about the political crucifixion of Obama. That's the true meaning. Oh, you haven't seen this?
No, I have not seen this.
Yeah. So here's Al Sharpton's quote. I think that the message is, and I can't do an Al Sharpton voice, no matter what the world may do to unfairly, no matter how you're crucified, nailed to the cross at home or in your personal relationships or on the job, that you can rise if you don't lose yourself during the hard times and the challenges. The story of Jesus on the cross, no matter what they humiliated him with, no matter how they mocked him, he took it because he knew he could rise. And the story of Easter, and my message for this Easter session, is no matter what unearthed sufferings you go through, that if you know you can rise above it, don't become like the disease that you fight. As I looked at President Obama at our convention last Friday, where all he took, he's been able to rise politically again. I'm not comparing him to Jesus, but I am saying that to every crucifixion there is a resurrection for those who believe.
The funny part is, and this out is, Jesse Jackson was standing right next to him and said, everything that he said. So I think that's good. It's nice to see Jesse out again.
Yeah.
My God.
So Breitbart ran a story on it, Washington Times.
MSNBC?
Of course, did something. No,
that's weird.
No, MSNBC. Of course, The Blaze.
Right. All the hater newspapers.
Right. All the hater ones. I read that quote from Breitbart, but I wanted to throw it out there. So you guys were talking about that stuff. I figured it kind of played in. I apologize if I interrupted and if you didn't know about that.
No, I did not know that. Although I am my brother's keeper, he doesn't happen to be one of them.
Ken, can I take his place?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Si se puede. Sorry.
Latinos. You really know how the hypocrisy, the just bloody hypocrisy of it all, and not just to even measure one to the true Messiah. I mean, that takes kahunas. And apparently a man with a Jerry curl for 30 years has the kahunas make that comparison. But this whole idea...
His ankles right about now?
He looked like one of those little peg things, you used to get the little candy out of when he was introducing the president and introducing. You expect his neck to go back and the candy to come out. You big head guy.
Isn't his head just getting bigger every year, and not metaphorically, like physically? Like, he looks like a bobblehead. Like, if he just stood straight up and just shook his head, and there was no point of reference, you would think he was a bobblehead.
Like if he had Parkinson's?
Yeah.
I didn't mean that to make fun.
No, I understand what you're saying. You were using a point of reference.
Yeah.
I just, to go back to Holder and the president, I understand that Holder is no longer, he's the Secretary of Justice, but he's not. He's a company man. He does exactly what he's told to do. But if they marched him out there to make those comments 2 days earlier, and then the president came out and completely stayed away from the topic altogether because his message was already put out there, I'd be like, all right, that's politics, but I get it. It's politics, and I'm not happy about it, but at least I get it. The president's not going to put himself in that situation that dare stoop himself. He has his cronies to do that. And then when he walks out and he starts doing almost the exact same thing, I was just like, there's zero moral turpitude left in that administration whatsoever.
The funny thing is that you all bring out so precisely. During the hearing, he really did not sound as black as he did giving that speech before the National Association Network or whatever. Like, hey, buddy, hey, buddy, you don't know how much I really care. And then he gets before he's like, yo, man, I really think they're taking advantage of me based on the color of my skin. Don't y'all feel the same way?
It was like an old Eddie Murphy skit. You're right. I mean, the voice that he threw out for that speech was nowhere close to the same one. And listen, it's like when Joe, where Joe's been and visiting what countries because he has the accent, because he has a mental brain power, I think, of a 3-year-old, and he just absorbs it. But Holder, that was total bravado. 2 days earlier, 3 days earlier, it's, you don't want to go there with me, buddy. I take these things very seriously. And then all of a sudden he's in front of a speech with, quote-unquote, his own people, and he's just like, yo, here's the deal, man. And you're like, dude, really? Like, that, it's ridiculous. But Obama
vacation.
When you see Obama with old white people, he's very just like calm, collected, very, very, very clear spoken. But you see him, like when I saw him taking the selfie with David Ortiz and the Red Sox, he's like talking ghetto to them. And he's trying to use slang, which is even worse because he's not at all a slang thrower. It's not like when the door closes, he lets his hair down. I don't think he, and it's fine that he doesn't, who cares? But he feels like he has to pander to the crowd that he's in front of, and that kind of gives you an insight to who he is.
Exactly. A man who's never really been comfortable in his own skin. And, what really appeals to me in terms of humor is this whole idea that he misses the daily national security briefings and others sit in for him. And I'm wondering, what does he give that up for? Probably to learn how to speak either Latino or
jive.
Jive. There you go. Those are much more important than national security. Don't worry about it. We'll bomb them with drones. Next question.
I just think of years ago when Curt Schilling was traded to the Boston Red Sox, there was a Dunkin' Donuts video of him listening how to speak Boston. He's repeating it over and over again, and pack the car. And I just picture Obama with a set of headphones on going, yo, man. Yo, man. I'll be right there. I'm practicing. Hold on.
It's like that scene in Beverly Hills Cop. Yeah, we're not going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe. Yo, man, you've been hanging out with this guy too long. Yo, man, I ain't falling for no banana in my tailpipe.
But like I said earlier.
Michelle, I think I got it.
Yo, man, I'm not falling for the banana in the tailpipe. Damn it.
Yo, please get in there. Please get in there. I want you to hear me practice. I'm sorry, Michelle. I'm sorry. I didn't mean
Well, you know what? Actually, now that you all bring that to the fore, the missing years of Obama, this basically explains it. He was probably in hiding, learning how to speak Blackese, and in order to appear in the movie, he couldn't do it, so they chose Eddie Murphy, and that's how life changed for all of us.
Either that or was Obama, has anybody ever seen Carlton and Obama in the same room?
Never.
It's not unusual to be loved by anyone.
Or LaTanya Jackson. Carlton and LaTanya Jackson and Obama, never same room.
But doesn't it just
where you get the mom jeans from?
Doesn't it just show you, though, that he has no personality of his own? And he has no. I really, like I said, we talked earlier, and you said you know that's who he is and everything. But I think to a point that he is just like a programmable computer.
No, I'm talking about his beliefs.
No,
he has very radical beliefs that are.
I understand that, but
he has the way about him.
But I even after a while question if, like, I really think that if you put him and had him hang out with Ted Cruz for 6 months, like fishing, he'd come back and be a total conservative. Like, I don't think that he has the ability to stick to his values.
No,
I just think that
you have to. If you look at his upbringing, you look at the he went to. No, there's no way.
He would never come back. He would never come back as a conservative, but he would learn how to say Latino.
I don't know. I just think we need to do a better job of taking care of the Latino community, Mr. President.
That's a George W. Bushism right there.
Hey, George W. had some good ones too. But you know, it does show you what our leadership is right now, and how horrible it is. It kind of brings us forth to the Bundy Ranch thing that we wanted to touch on, and I know we don't have a lot of time left. Not the Bunny
Did you
Ranch.
say Bunny Ranch?
Not the Bunny Ranch.
I don't even know what the Bunny Ranch is. I'm uncomfortable right now. Why is Ken laughing? Hang on, let me Google it.
Safe search off.
Before we go to, I want to end our discussion regarding Obama and Holder's fake ghettoism in front of their community, quote unquote, liberal hacks. The idea with the story, the top story on Newsmax right now is that Hank Aaron is receiving hate mail after his GOP attack, and it's not because he may be going back to break the home run record.
Well, you know, Hank's been a huge Obama supporter from the beginning, though. So that came as no surprise to me whatsoever. Same thing, great ball player, but his politics suck. And there are plenty of people out there that are the exact same way. But the fact that anyone would take the time to comment to Hank Aaron about politics would I can't even begin. It would be like talking to a guy who's never fished about fishing. Like, you can have your political beliefs, that's fine, but when it comes to athletes and sports entertainers and stuff like that, very few of them know what they're talking about when it comes to politics. They just do it to keep themselves in the spotlight. You know, I think of guys like James Woods, who's very educated in politics and absolutely pays attention to what's going on, and you know it because he's not shy about it. But he's not one of these, you know, flyby guys that just has to drop a comment into because baseball season just started and he wants everyone to remember his name. And that's kind of what I get out of Hank and people that do things like that. You know, if he did it in the middle of December and he gave like a long history behind it and, you know, started quoting things or whatever, that's okay. Maybe he is a little more educated about the politics and he actually has a true care and concern, but he doesn't do that. It's the beginning of baseball season. I'm sure he's going to be making a bunch of appearances, and he wants to make sure that everyone knows how Hank Aaron feels, so the media is around him and asks him questions. And not about the fact that his godson uses steroids or used steroids.
There you go. Hey, buddy, you don't want to go there. It's never been proven in a court of law that his godson actually used the needle.
No,
Okay,
it is. He's on house probation for it. He used a cream. He rubbed cream on his eyes.
Okay. He did use the needle.
Oh man!
Right.
So, Clint, are you still Googling Bunny Ranch?
I'm lost right now. I don't even.
So, real quick, because we wanted to talk about it tonight, but the Bundy Ranch, and the incident that happened there, and not Al Bundy's ranch, talking about the one in Nevada.
See, that's where I made my mistake. I was listening for the song Love and Marriage, and I was thinking, we got something here. The Bundy Ranch. We can see Al coming out with his hand in his pocket or whatever, telling the U.S. forces, hey, take it if you can get it. Can you take over?
No, we talked about this before we went on the air, and one of the things that really concerned me is, you look into it, and you have to see each side's argument. We could talk about how it was enforced the day of on a separate occasion. You have to see each side's argument, and the government, Bundy could have done some things differently on his end. But I brought up, here's a guy who's watched every rancher around him go out of business because of the BLM, essentially, and the restrictions that they put on, and said, no, you're not going to destroy my family's heritage. You're not going to destroy my family business. You're not going to make my family go hungry. I'm sick and tired of it. And I think a lot of people relate to that. You look at other industries. You look at, Pittsburgh in the 70s and to the 80s to the 90s, and how government overregulation destroyed that city. You look at Detroit, and how government regulations and unions did a job on that city. And you look at the cattle industry, which is really one of the last real original industries left in this world, one of the last original ways to make money from when this country was founded to today. And I think he said, I've had enough, and I'm not going to do it. And he knows, he's. I don't think he's a dumb guy. He knows there's those two court court decisions there. And like I said, I think that he, to a point, he knew it was coming, and he wanted it to be a big deal because he wanted to call attention to his cause. I don't think that he knows he legally, like Clint said, he's kind of on the wrong side of the law, technically. And I don't think he's stupid in the sense of that he thought he had a fighting chance. But I think he really wanted people to say, hey, they're running me out of my business, and they're using a damn tortoise to do it.
Look, I understand. This is one of those things where I think that from the perspective of the agents, not the agency, because I think BLM could have gone about this an entirely different way. And I understand there's two court orders, but the agents that are there, they have a job to do. They have a court order giving them legal authority to impound cattle, and that's it. And you can take this dispute back for 20 plus years or whatnot, and even before that. And Bundy could have handled this perhaps differently as well. And we can have the debate over the tortoise another time, which is a ridiculous thing to try and to put somebody out of business for. But bottom line is the federal government, when they came in and did this, you have the people who say, hey, we have a right to resist a law that is unconstitutional and interferes with our natural rights and our natural law. We have a right to resist that. And then you have the federal agents, the ones that are on the ground, saying, hey, I just have a job to do, and I have a judge, basically court order, so I'm basically serving this warrant for your cattle, and that's really all I'm here to do. And you've lost in the courts twice so far. So I understand the agents on the ground being kind of in a tough spot, but I understand the Bundy family's perspective also of, hey, this is way too oppressive, and we have the right to the fundamental natural right to resist an illegal unconstitutional law. I get that argument. And again, I get it on both sides, but I think there are some things governmentally that need to change. But hey, there is a time when the people need to stand up and say, hey, this is absolutely wrong. So I get both sides of the argument, and I'm leaving it at that point for right now. But what I did find absolutely ridiculous, in addition to the huge federal response, is the condition that they allegedly left the ranch. Specifically, they got rid of, quote, illegal structures on Bundy's ranch. I mean, they took out water lines, corrals, water tanks. And according to the feds, it had to be restored, the land, to its natural state. And it would also prevent Bundy from restarting the cattle, his cattle business. But they destroyed private structures on Bundy's land, and there was nothing in the court order that allowed for that. The order was simply to impound the cattle.
Yeah, I just want to say that we have about 2 minutes, and I don't want to get too far into the woods because I might be offensive in terms of where I come down on this one because it is one that sees the federal overreach in this regard, despite the decisions that have been made by the agency and by the court and historical purposes, knowing that Nevada has been around for at least 20 years before his family ever made the first cow crossing, knowing the fact that he has been requested upon to leave the federal land, knowing that Nevada's ownership of its own state is somewhere in the area about 15% of all of the land. We're looking at what I see here also in terms of a divide in terms of the conservative movement versus those who might be a bit more establishment-oriented, who do not see this as a threat to private property, to the state's sovereign rights, and also the rights of men to protect their property and themselves. Thank God for the militias arriving when they did, because it would have been far worse. And we reported that on Tuesday night of our show. In addition, tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Marty Hayes, who is the president of the Firearms Academy of Seattle, will be joining us. And he is not only a firearms specialist and personal defense specialist, but also an attorney. He will be talking with us about that particular matter in great detail. But I'm going to be very frank here. In the way that things have been decided, he is against the law. In the way that things have been decided, we might be watching the Bill of Rights get shredded right before our eyes. And if not for Nevada's militia and Montana's militia and a few other militia groups showing up to make a stand, we might allow the federal government not only to take which is considered public, but begin to take that which is private, which opens up the windows for them to shred, again, the Constitution by any means necessary, and especially through what is supposed to be the least ominous and least powerful means of doing that, through our court system. It is up to our state and up to our legislatures to create a means by which men might be able to use land and not allow a tortoise, which has a greater number than probably the rabbits that they race, to have privilege to take away a man's very livelihood.
Well, I agree. I do agree with you. I actually feel that this goes a lot further beyond just some cattle grazing. And, you know, one of the questions I brought up, and I know we're going to run over a few minutes here, and I'm okay with that. One of the questions I did bring up was, if this was completely private property that he was on, if he owned it, the state of Nevada was never involved, and then the feds said, almost like they're doing with rainwater and the EPA, hey, you know what, that tortoise is endangered, and we need that land back, and you can't ranch on it. Would that leap have been made? And I don't know, but it's a question to ponder. If they really thought it was so serious that the tortoise was in such danger, look at the EPA reaches with anywhere that water pools now. They feel like they have some sort of authority. Is it anywhere that tortoise goes, that special tortoise, that they can run people out of homes and stuff like that?
Well, they're doing it in Louisiana. They're doing it in Louisiana with men who own property in Louisiana as a result of not having the actual natural habitat for, I believe it's some type of frog, that has left by nature, natural selection. These are the same liberals that believe in the evolution, natural selection. These frogs have left that part of Louisiana for better natural selectivity. But somehow the EPA has determined that these men must not develop their land by the means of creating businesses and developing homes there because those frogs might come back. What the heck with this? When do frogs have constitutional rights?
Are they saying that the chickens might come home to roost?
They just might. And they might be carrying a cross, too.
But, to bring up Clint's point, I definitely agree that I understand that the court has made a decision. And I think what you're saying is, yeah, they made a decision, but they made a decision that shouldn't have been made on a law that shouldn't be standing and on a land grab that shouldn't have been done. I also bring up, the amount of action that was taken and how this was such a big deal. And listen, I know that they went 20 years into this for the court case. There was other things that both sides could have done. I said that, Bundy should have taken the federal government to court on a local and state level and got a decision there and then used that as part of his appeals instead of going to the Fed court. Because, you can absolutely see and argue that he's not going to necessarily get a fair decision on a Fed court that's trying to uphold a Fed law. I'm not saying that it's completely corrupt, but, odds can be stacked against you, whereas if you bring it on a state level, now you have a state decision, a judge appointed by the state. And if he sides for you, well, now you start really getting to a 10th Amendment argument.
Yeah, well, the problem
there
is,
you go.
The problem is the next level after the state Supreme Court would be the Federal Appeals Court, which would be the Ninth Circuit,
right? Which
we know how they're going to rule. And
well, not necessarily. The last few times they've actually
that was because it's a 3-judge panel as opposed to the court sitting as a whole,
right? And I do
understand that the Ninth Circuit is going to rule in favor of the Feds, and then it would go to the U.S. Supreme Court.
But while all that was happening, his fees wouldn't have been going up, but it would add clout to his argument. So on that level. But the other thing, too, that they could have done is, and I didn't say this, I believe it was Judge Napolitano that said, the Feds could have just leaned on his home, put a lien on it, done it completely civil, and put a lien on it and gone that route. Now, did I want that to happen? No, but is that a much better choice than, I think, having his cattle taken and killed? Absolutely.
But the problem is you had a judge somewhere that said that they can impound the cattle. So you had a judge that said, yeah, impound the cattle, don't put a lien on the property, or you have a court order. And again, I think it's a bad ruling, and I think it's how it's gone. The power of the federal government is completely ridiculous, and that's kind of an aside to this argument. But my point was the agents on the ground who are there to kind of go through the process. I understand they're in a tight spot. They're sworn to uphold the law, and they believe that's what they're doing with a court order. But then you have, and that's different than hey, they're here to take your guns because that's a specific constitutional guarantee.
But what I'm saying is,
can I read from the document from the actual? This is United States District Court, District of Nevada. This is the plaintiff versus Five and Bundy. That's the United States of America. All of us are against Five and Bundy, so he must be a Superman. Yeah. The injunctive relief says the United States has established irreparable harm not only through the continuing nature of Bundy's trespass, but because Bundy's cattle have caused and continue to cause damage to natural and cultural now resources and pose a threat to public safety. How many armed men were on the Bundy ranch that were not from the Bundy ranch? We're talking about almost military-style snipers who were set out to do harm to this man. When did we get to this level with our own citizenry that for a simple matter, we're willing to gun them down and take their cattle?
Well,
and the other question I had is the federal government charged fees. So if they charge fees for him being on that land, were they not also allowing the fact for him to be on that land, number one? And number two, that apparently his cattle were of no reparable harm to those darn tortoises. And that the Olympic Games between the tortoises and the bunny rabbits could keep going.
And that those tortoises are, in fact, thriving while his cattle are grazing. And if they cease to graze, you will, in fact, now have changed the condition of the tortoise.
Right. And now maybe...
But as far as the armed thing goes, I know that there was some armed militia, organized militia folks there as well. And, you know, again, I think that's a tough spot for those agents, and here's why. They're executing a court order, and there is a group that is forming that has weapons as well. From a law enforcement standpoint, I see where they're going to, in order to execute that. And we can talk about, well, the court order was illegal in and of itself, and I can see that argument, and I can agree that there's federal overreach here. So I want to say that right out front. I agree there's federal overreach here. That being said, the agents on the ground, it's not like it's an outright constitutional violation. They're not going out to collect guns, right? They're not going out to imprison people because they're a certain race and we're at war with that country like they did in World War II with the Japanese Americans. So that's not what's going on here. You have a court order regarding property and grazing rights, which is gray, and I think a straight-faced argument could be made on each side, and I'm just going to leave it at that for right now. Again, my position is that I believe the government overreached here. However, I understand that those agents, in order to protect themselves, just like civilian law enforcement, which is really what these federal folks are, they carry guns, and sometimes American citizens kill cops, and they shoot at them too, and so that's why those American cops need to sometimes use force against American citizens. The federal law enforcement isn't different, so I can understand they need to respond with guns also in order to protect themselves, because not all American citizens are peace-loving, and it's not the military doing it. This is a civilian-controlled federal group that's doing it. So I think I'm okay with the fact that they brought guns to the fight. I'm okay with the citizens bringing guns to the fight. I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is the federal overreach here, and I understand the position that the agents were in.
Yeah, and Iggy Mom is making note of the treaty that's in effect, the Guadalupe Treaty, in which the federal government took back the lands from Mexico after winning the war. Listen, while there was ample opportunity for this to be ramped up, there was also ample opportunity for this to be handled in a very civil manner. And I don't think this is where my problem comes with this. Literally, you have forces that are being drawn upon at the state and federal level to execute this one court order. And it borders on who's in charge to give that call to federal officials to be called upon to be put in harm's way. You have to really be, and I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there, buddy. You have to really be off your block to think that the lives of those men who have been called upon to protect the law was worth serving that court order to this gentleman. There are abundant means in which it could have been done much better.
Sure.
And certainly that's harm's way.
I would absolutely agree with that.
Without doubt. And you know, like everything else too, and everyone assumes that all those guys were happy to be there. And it's like everything else. There is that assumption, and we live in the world of new media, and I watched on Twitter as things that were obviously being exaggerated, and this is when I get nervous. I appreciate the free speech of Twitter, but this is when I get mad because you do have people that want that to go to a new level, and they are out there on some level, and they exaggerate and start. I saw pictures that were obviously not from the Bundy Ranch in Nevada of people in military fatigues and stuff like that, and this person was spotted at the Bundy Ranch, and I'm like, really? That's a tropical rainforest behind them. Like, how can you that fire? I'm not kidding. I saw a sniper laid out. I saw a sniper laid out
from Central Africa. There you go. All of the Bundy Ranch.
I'm telling you, it was a picture of a guy laid out in military fatigues with a spotter. And it was the one I'm talking about was in a rainforest. I recognize it was not a high desert at all. There was nothing there the high desert does not have deciduous trees like this. Like, you know what I mean? There's not a canopy in the high desert. There was and then there was another picture of a Humvee that was obviously a 25-year-old Humvee from like the first Gulf War, and was not like the new ones. It's not like the MRAPs. And same thing, and there was a soldier that wasn't even American. You could tell by his outfit and what the gear he had.
It was VC.
He had like an AK-47, a helmet that didn't match. And it wasn't like, oh, that guy's Special Forces. No, you could plainly tell this guy probably had a hard time tying his shoe because they didn't teach that in whatever military he was in. But it wasn't the United States military. So that was the other issue that fed into a lot of this is there was those exaggerations out there, and I kept telling people, hey, listen, the facts are enough to win this argument.
Yeah.
Let's not make this worse, because then what happens is exactly what has happened is those on the left and mainstream media will now start painting every conservative group and militia as absolute kooks because they take these little hotspot statements from people who are either not really well informed, think they're doing the right thing but have no clue, or trying to perpetuate something further, and they try to pass that off, and then everyone on the left thinks that. I saw a Facebook post that says, what's the difference between the guy in Kansas City that shot those two Christians and Bundy? Bundy just hasn't shot yet. And I'm like, how can you even make that comparison? But that's what happens. That's the thought process. That's these people that want to perpetuate their own argument through somebody else's horrific experience in life and potentially ending his family's life and career. And that's the stuff that drives me mad.
Exactly.
I
have a question.
The facts in this case will win this argument.
Exactly. I have a question for both of you all. Do you think that Glenn Beck is getting a little more weak with every passing day in terms of his assessments of the situation there and his bravado in stating that those conservatives that argue an alternative put at risk their very well-being as knowledgeable speakers on subject matter?
What was the last part of that question? So I think Glenn Beck is getting weaker as he goes on. Yes, he has become more tame.
Mm-hmm. Which means to me,
he's getting pressure.
No. This is in terms of the latter part of the question. Is he becoming more subject to the establishment media, or is he remaining rebellious and outside, which was the hallmark of him being a conservative commentator?
I think that here's my issue with some of the things the Blaze does. There is never any. I'm not going to say never. I am hard pressed to find a positive story from the Blaze on
anything.
A positive story, period. But a positive story specifically on like law enforcement. Look, on this show we support